Few British politicians get to hear their names turned into a chant. For his supporters, Jeremy Corbyn represents hope, the triumph of the principled and the mild-mannered.
If you were going to be stuck on a desert island for the rest of your life, Jeremy would be an ideal person to be with. You would not have a lot of tensions or anything like that.
Jeremy never gets yourself excited, never will. It just carries on. And that's the way it's always been. It's been very easy-pleasy.
To his supporters, he's a challenge to buttoned-up mainstream politics and all its evils. They love the accidental nature of his leadership.
First time in my lifetime, at the age of nearly 30, that something different has come along, a credible option has actually turned up.
I'd rather someone who doesn't know where the camera is, to be honest, and actually says something genuine.
Jeremy, you need to look at the cameras, please. Thank you. You need to look at the cameras.
Thank you very much for coming here today.
To some, facing the supporters, not the cameras, goes to the heart of what's wrong with his leadership.
You've got to remember that Jeremy Corbyn, when he became leader of the Labour Party, accidentally fell into a field, politics, that he'd never worked in before. He'd worked in a related but different field called protest. And in protest, what you do is you gather a small band of people who already agree with you, you talk to them, and you discover that they agree with you. In politics, of course, you've got to try and persuade people to come over to you. And Corbyn had no real experience of doing that.
Just win. To long marchers of the left, that's pure heresy.
He chose politics. He won a lot of protests, but so have most of us over our lives. But it's not protest or politics. Protest is a part of politics.
It's very nice of you to waste 3 hours outside my house this morning. Goodbye.
Jeremy Corbyn's politics are shaped by the North London constituency he's represented for 36 years, North Islington, where he boasts that 70 different languages are spoken. He says not going to university means he's more at ease with everyone. One shadow cabinet member says Jeremy Corbyn's capacity for small talk is endless.
Yeah, my dad was an electrical engineer, and he always said to me, he'd stick with electricity, you'll always get a job.
Not now, Jeremy, it's bingo.
And the man no one thought would be a leader doesn't buy the traditional model of leadership.
It's not my way to try and control the way people do things. I want people to come together with ideas and come together in enthusiasm.
He goes into a meeting and he says, I don't want to lead you, I want you to lead me.
Yeah.
An awful lot of punters out there would find that slightly baffling and a bit hippie-ish.
Well, I think we've had leaders who have not listened to the people, and it's resulted in some calamitous mistakes.
I want us not just to be a Labour Party, a political movement that wants economic change, that wants social change, that wants housing, that wants railways, that wants all those things. It's also about the cultural imagination of people and unleashing that imagination and giving them the space for it.
He's probably a Marxist in the sense that he takes the analysis, Marx's analysis of capital, he probably would still adhere to, but I very much doubt he would go with the sort of prophetic historical destiny parts of Marxism, whereas some of the entourage really would. They still believe in a biblical interpretation of Marxism. But I think Corbyn has moved to a more woolly idealism, a sort of rainbow coalition of the left idea. He's quite a 60s child, where the Marxism gets mixed in with a whole load of other slightly unrealistic things.
You didn't see excited rallies when Jeremy Corbyn campaigned in the EU referendum last summer. It was these low-key and infrequent outings that helped to trigger the uprising when 75% of Labour MPs voted no confidence in their leader.
We got 66% of the Labour vote to vote for Remain. We should have got 75%, and some of that was not. I was just pleased that Jeremy had the intellectual flexibility to change the views he's had ever since the 70s and the first referendum to come out in favour. And I'm convinced that he voted to Remain and believed in Remain in the end. I think some of the people working around him who we had the most difficulty with probably voted to leave.
His head of strategy, Seamus Milne, and his long-standing political ally, John McDonnell, have shaped Jeremy Corbyn's leadership more than any others.
Jeremy is mild, and I mean, I heard a story.
Mild-mannered.
I'd heard a story where the cat jumped up and scratched him, and he says, "You naughty cat, what did you scratch me for?" You know, I mean, that's sort of...
Tried to rationalise it.
Rationalise.
What do you think John McDonnell would have done with the cat?
He would have kicked the cat and was probably...
Someone described Jeremy Corbyn as leader of the opposition and said he's an idealist surrounded by ideologues. Something to that?
I think that's quite a good description.
You're the ideologue, he's the idealist.
No, you can't split it that way. I have ideals as well. But
look, that makes him quite a useful frontman as well, that's how they see it.
Not at all. Look, Jeremy's his own man. What he has is a deep set of beliefs. He's a principled person, completely honest, absolutely decent, but...
He listens to you a lot, doesn't he?
We're friends, we listen to each other, but
yeah,
I tell
but
you...
the suggestion is you pull levers.
That's rubbish.
And we can win for everybody!
The Corbyn election tour pulls crowds around the country. But if the voters don't follow suit, will the Corbyn project, moving the party to the left, only a year and a half old, survive him?
The right doesn't want us left in the party at all. Go in, do your own thing, you know, get your own party. I've said that on several occasions. And
still a real possibility.
That could be a real in the future, of course.
It's the other side of a general election defeat. It's a serious possibility.
It's a possibility
that the right turns around and tells the left,
get out,
hop it,
yes,
expels you,
yes.
Start your own party,
and they become a nice, beautiful centre party. Even might take the Liberals on board, you know, Labour and Liberal or whatever they might want to call themselves.
And the Jeremy Corbyn moment will have been a brief one in history.
Been a brief one because the people of Britain will have turned down his policies.
Some people might feel that this election's come at a moment when he's barely started on his project in terms of entrenching policy and changing the personnel.
I think that's the problem. We were looking at this September, the Labour Party conference would have had a debate about making all these changes. And so if Jeremy wins, I should imagine the Labour conference will rubber stamp everything he wants.
But if he doesn't, and the party loses badly, Jeremy Corbyn's closest allies are telling him to stay in the job, to dare the right to take him on. Any challenger, they say, would find, like the last one, they have to bow to a permanent shift in party opinion.
I'm no less principled, I'm no lesser a socialist than Jeremy.
You feel there's a developing consensus between the Corbyn leadership and the MPs?
I think across the whole party.
I can't see it.
No, I know, but because a lot
Did they not tell you what they're telling me?
A lot of the debate, that's what I mean, a lot of the debate in the media is around personalities. But
when what they're telling me, they're not happy with this leadership and they want to come back and monster it the moment the election is gone.
Well, some of them do. Well, I don't know about that. But all I'm saying is this, is that the media debates around the personalities, within the party, the constituency parties and the different structures of ours, the policy debate is consensual.
Smile now.
Come to Uncle Jezza.
His team says he's enjoying himself right now.
Zen, Monsieur Zen is fine, and Monsieur Zen is in fine fettle.
The accidental party leader will need all his reserves of Zen-like calm in 4 weeks' time, if the responsibilities of power fall to him, or if bitter Labour opponents try to overturn his project.
Well, I managed to speak to Jeremy Corbyn just after his speech, and I began by asking him when in the last half-century has British-backed military action been, in his view, necessary?
I think British-backed action to enforce UN-agreed ceasefires, to intervene to try and bring about a settlement, to bring about, in some cases, changes, such as the Zimbabwean independence in 1981, such as East Timor, when the UN brokered a ceasefire there, and some British forces were involved in that. I think that is a very good use of our armed forces capability. My objections have been where there's been unilateral action taken without international law backing, such as, obviously, the war in Iraq.
But there's an appalling conflict unfolding before our eyes in Syria. 500,000, almost 500,000 people now killed. Assad using chemical weapons on his own people. And yet you oppose military action there, British involvement in military action. So if not then, if not there, when and where?
When the proposal came for the bombing of Syria, the question was, on whose behalf are we bombing? Were we bombing on behalf of the Al-Nusra Brigade? Were we bombing on behalf of the opposition forces? Who actually were we working with on this?
But you still absolutely rule out any British involvement in military action in Syria.
I felt that military action would end up exacerbating, not improving the situation. And that's why we opposed it. It's not that we want the war to continue, quite the opposite. We want the war to stop. We don't want it to spiral out of control, which would become a proxy war between Russia and Western countries.
If military action is very much a last resort, as you set out, it follows, doesn't it, that you would like to spend much less on defence?
Not necessarily, because...
That's what you said less than a year ago. You want to spend a lot less on defence.
Can I finish my answer?
Go for it.
What I was pointing out, and I point out again today, is that what you spend the money on is important. Our soldiers and our sailors and Air Force people have been actually shortchanged. Shortchanged with bad quality housing, shortchanged with the equipment they've got, and the frigates and shipbuilding orders that should have been placed haven't been placed. But it's also what we spend our money doing. I think
But you don't want to spend less anymore, just to be clear.
Well, we're saying we'd continue with the 2%, but it's also how it would be, how the forces would be used and deployed.
Just to clarify, that 2% is the NATO benchmark. And of course, NATO, 3 years ago, you said NATO should shut up shop, go home and go away. You have changed your tune, haven't you?
What I've said is that I want to use our position to try to diffuse tensions with Russia and make have us better relations across the peace.
So would you send troops to defend a NATO ally who is under attack from Russia?
Well, Article 5 of the NATO treaty says there is a duty to support any other nation state that is under threat. That doesn't necessarily mean sending troops. It means diplomatic, it means economic, it means sanctions, it means a whole range of things.
So you do all you could to avoid
sending I think you
troops.
have to look through the whole process, because relations between Turkey and its neighbouring states are not good. Turkey is a NATO member state. Would we automatically want to get involved in a war that had been provoked by somebody's actions? I think you have to nuance it and think it through.
So you can't sit here and commit troops under Article 5 to protect an ally under attack?
That's a very unfair way of characterising what I just said. I said you had to think through the entire issue. You had to think through the tensions that are there. And what we can do, as a member of the UN Security Council, as a very powerful nation, what we can do to try and bring about a situation where there isn't a war. Don't let's think all the time about how to go to war. Let's think instead about how to prevent wars by providing real security, real democracy, and real respect for human rights for people.
You said in your speech, and I quote, you would want to do everything necessary to protect the safety and security of our country.
Of course.
Are you ruling out ordering a nuclear strike as Prime Minister Corbyn?
What I've said was a nuclear strike by anybody would obliterate millions of people and there would be no first use of nuclear weapons. I want to pursue what the Labour government in the 1960s started, which was the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. I've attended nuclear non-proliferation treaty conferences. We have to work with all the other declared nuclear weapon states as well as others to bring about ultimately a nuclear-free world. Listen, the people of Korea, North Korea, are very poor conditions there. The last thing they need is to be spending all this money on weaponry. The last thing we need is to move into any conflict with them. Let us work with them, with South Korea and with China as part of the six-party talks.
Can I take from what you've just said that you are still a member of the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament?
I have been a member of it all my life.
And you'll continue. I mean, I just find it puzzling that, in the manifesto that is leaked, that you've committed
You're working from the leaked document, are you?
Okay, but you've committed to keeping Trident. I assume that's still in the manifesto.
It was voted on at Labour Party conference.
But I wonder how hard that is for you personally to have that as official party.
It was voted on at Labour Party conference. I obviously respect the decisions that have been taken.
But is that hard for you personally?
By our movement, our party. I want to see a nuclear-free world, and I will do everything I can to work through the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and point out to people the horrors of what a nuclear war means. Listen,
so it must
we have a responsibility, all of us, to bring about a peaceful world. That is my priority.
So it must be a torture to sign up to that party policy as leader then, to renew Trident.
I'm very proud to lead this party, and I'm very proud of what our party will be doing in government to improve the lives of people of this country and make our contribution to a peaceful nuclear-free world ultimately.
Brexit, would you apply the same leadership as Prime Minister to the Brexit negotiations as you have to the leadership of the Labour Party?
What I would do is ensure we get tariff-free trade access to the European market and that we protect the working conditions, consumer rights and environmental protections that we've achieved through the European Union.
But my point is, when 172 of your own MPs backed a no confidence vote in you, do you have that authority to face up to the EU leaders?
An election gives you the authority to do that. We have set out very clearly what our 6 points are. But I tell you this, we're not going to do megaphone diplomacy with Europe. We're not going to threaten them with a tax haven on the shores of Europe to undermine and undercut the European economies. We're going to work with them. And so I've been working with fellow socialist leaders across Europe. I have asked them all to guarantee the rights of British nationals to remain living in their countries, just as I believe this country should do the same for EU nationals that are living here. So we would have serious, of course, negotiations, the priority being to reach an agreement that protects jobs and protects trade with Europe.
Do you want to win this election?
Yes, and it's going very well indeed. The numbers of people coming out on the streets to help us, to help the Labour cause, is phenomenal. I've never seen such numbers in my lifetime, and this is the 9th general election I've fought.
So take us, just finally, take us on a bit of a journey. What is it going to feel like if you walk over the steps of number 10? What will that feel like to you?
Very exciting, because we have a responsibility to do something about poverty, about division and about lost opportunity in our society. A government that changes the whole economic and social narrative in Britain. Very, very exciting.
Not a tiny bit of you wants to be tending your allotment rather than sitting in the cabinet, around the cabinet table at number 10?
It's possible to do both, because if you grow plants and look after your garden, it gives you time to think, gives you a connection with the natural world and makes you stronger in everything else you do.
So you wouldn't be giving up the allotment?
How could I?
Jeremy Corbyn, thank you very much.